Hello, hello, hello. How does that sound? Does that sound better? Does it sound worse? Mic check. What? Is this?
No, it's the one that's laying down, the 635 or whatever. The big head mic sits right there.
I don't see it. Oh, this? I don't know. It doesn't sound good, though? Does it sound okay, though?
Everybody ready? Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. I hope that by this point you all have had the chance to review the after-action report that we issued this morning. Chief Drake is going to have some opening comments about the report, followed by Mr. Ed Yarbrough, who will also have some opening comments. He was the chairman of the After-Action Review Committee. And then we'll take your questions. Chief Drake.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being here. On January 7th, I announced a special five-member committee to undertake an after-action review of the bombing on Christmas Day concerning Mr. Anthony Warner. After 5 months of dedicated work, the committee has forwarded me the report, and I accept all of its recommendations as shown in the report. The committee has concluded in no way, there's no way we can know for certain that this bombing could have been prevented. And the patrol officers followed protocols properly, but there were some deficiencies that were noted. The police department is committed to seeing that all deficiencies are corrected moving forward. The committee's 8-page report contains a number of solid, important recommendations that will significantly strengthen our response. Among the safeguards is establishes a monthly explosive summit, which is I'm unsure of is happening anywhere else in the country, that involves the federal government, the FBI, the ATF, members of the Department of Homeland Security. The summit will provide a regular forum for discussion of investigations, and it will include our bomb technicians from the police department. I'm extremely grateful for the 5 members of the After Action Committee, including Mr. Ed Yarbrough, former U.S. Attorney, Middle District of Tennessee, who headed this. Also, Council Member Jennifer Gamble, the Chair of the Public Safety Committee of the Council. Also, Jill Fitcher, the Executive Director of the Community Oversight Board, who is here with us today. Kathy Morante of the Office of Professional Accountability, also an attorney. And also Deputy Chief Dwayne Green, who commands our Community Services Bureau. At this time, I would ask Mr. Yarbrough to speak with you and take any questions.
Thank you very much, Chief Drake. This is a difficult day in some respects because we knew that the report would probably find some deficiencies in the work that was done, even though there was a lot of work that was done by the Patrol Division in particular that was quite good and accomplished all of their purposes. But I want to say that the group, what we call the board or the committee, including Ms. Fitcher, who is here today, worked very well together. They were very cooperative with each other. We met numerous times. I don't think I counted. I probably close to 10 times up in the law offices where I work, and then we also did some other work by internet, and obviously we emailed each other many, many times. But the group was very well coordinated. They cooperated with each other. At times there were differences of opinion, but we were able to resolve those without any acrimony, I believe. And we've come to the conclusions that are in the report that you have now seen, which we feel are accurate. And as the chief said, though, and I believe it's on the bottom of page 2 of the written report, it is impossible to know what, if anything, could have prevented this terrible incident. But for the unusual characteristics of Mr. Warner, this could have been the greatest mass murder in the history of Tennessee. Fortunately, he decided to warn other people and only kill himself. But we can't take any comfort in that. And so what we looked at was what happened back in August of 2019 to see if there was any basis upon which we could say that it could have been prevented. The problem with saying that is we have the benefit of hindsight, and obviously those police officers did not. While we do think that they could have been more diligent at times, it is impossible to say what they would have found had they looked harder or what they would have learned if they had investigated more. Because of that, we have concluded that it cannot be known whether this incident could have been prevented. I credit the police department for already implementing many of the changes which we would have recommended, but actually they had already noticed much of the material that we had looked at, and so they had already decided that some of these things would be done before we began our meeting. Last thing I want to say before the questions is I really want to compliment Chief Drake. I've been in either law enforcement or in legal practice in this community for almost 50 years, and I've known all the police chiefs since Chief Casey pretty well. And I think Nashville can be very proud of their new police chief. Chief Drake not only had the courage to form this board, he also had the good judgment to leave us completely alone and allow us to follow the evidence wherever it led. And whatever conclusion we came to, I think he was ready to accept. And he has indeed accepted that today. So I think you can be proud of him. I think you can be proud of your department. The fact that a few mistakes were made is important, and I understand steps will be taken to correct that. But I certainly want to thank him for giving us the job. It was not necessarily an easy job. It certainly wasn't a pleasant one, but I believe we've done it in the best way possible, and that the people of Nashville can be comforted by the fact that everything that we found and the implementation of these new procedures will hopefully prevent anything like this from ever happening in our community again. Thank you.
Okay, questions?
Can you discuss what exactly was reviewed in the committee? I don't know, was it documents, video, audio? Was there interviews conducted?
Yes, we started with all the written reports and the transcripts of any tape recordings or 911 calls, all of that. We started with that material, which the department had already assembled and looked at, and I think that's what formed the basis for some of the changes that they made early. So we started with that, and then we had interviews with all the principal individuals, the attorney, obviously Ms. Perry. We spent an entire afternoon basically questioning her. I should point out, we did not have subpoena power. We could not compel people to come before us, and we did not place them under oath because we didn't have that authority either. But in every instance, people who were asked to come did come, and they gave live testimony, and no one refused to answer any significant questions. And I guarantee you some of them were cross-examined fairly closely.
Can you give us any idea of the disagreements that you talked about? What did you guys disagree on? What were the nature of those disagreements?
Oh, disagreements? Well, I don't know. That gets behind the curtain a little bit, and I think the fact that we were able to resolve those probably should be the result. The only thing that maybe I should discuss on that is the question about whether there should have been a search warrant sought or obtained on the day of the first investigation. There was some disagreement in the group on that, but you know, the problem with that is actually there are two problems. Number one is we don't know that any judge would have granted a search warrant based on the information they had. The information they had was obviously hearsay, although you can base a warrant on hearsay. You also have to have some corroboration of that, and I'm not sure they had that. The other thing is this, though. Even if they had gotten a warrant and gone to the house and possibly the RV, this is a year and 4 months before the bomb itself was detonated. So he may have had baking soda on the table. Well, you can't arrest a man for having baking soda on the table. So we don't know what would have come from that. So to speculate on it, it's kind of speculation on top of speculation. And I would say that, the conclusion we came to was that you just can't know that.
And Chief Drake, can you specifically tell us what already has been implemented and what, I guess you guys can soon start implementing or what's left to be implemented?
So what we've implemented is, so we want our investigative units, hazardous devices to document all incidents instead of committing it to memory. We also want our precinct investigators to follow up on that, so that's been implemented. We've been getting bomb threats for years, and this is the one that finally detonated, but it put us in a place where we need to make sure we have safeguards in place. And before a case is closed, it has to be presented to command staff. There's also, which is going to be implemented, a four-part closure system to make sure there's no gaps that are that's not disclosed, so we can, find out. We want to make sure that we close it in the proper way and that it's not closed prematurely. And so those are the ones that are implemented. And then we have the monthly task force with the federal agents, which would be the ATF, Department of Homeland Security, FBI, et cetera. So we bring all the parties to the table to discuss what's going on, what's been done, and what we can do moving forward. So.
And how involved are you in the process of like knowing, hey, if you get a call, it's been documented, how involved are you in the process or how much information comes up to you in the process if you do get a call about bomb?
In the process now, I'll be notified of it. So when they have these meetings and it comes to the command staff, we have a weekly meeting. And it'll come to me. If it's something that's immediate, I'll get it immediately. So we want to make sure that that's happening. It's just, hindsight is 20/20, and we can look back to, I wanted this review to expose any deficiencies to make us better as an agency, better as a city when we respond to these type of incidents. And so I knew that there would be some findings, just wasn't sure what they would be, but I think this is going to make us better moving forward.
Do you know if other police departments follow similar protocols, whether they're surrounding Nashville or beyond that? And also, do you have a message for the people that lived on Second Avenue and maybe the business owners that haven't found closure just yet, and some of them may not be coming back to Second Avenue once it is rebuilt? Do you have a message now that this report is out?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I have a great relationship with the stakeholders downtown, whether they're the businessmen or business people or the residents there. And we're going to continue to do the best we can. We're going to continue to bring the best services we can. It's just part of an evolving police department to serve our city. And so this report was done to find any deficiencies to try to ensure to the best extent possible that nothing like this can happen again without us doing absolutely everything we can. And then still, even with all of these measures, we still can't say this wouldn't happen, but we want to make sure we were prepared. So.
Chief, the report mentions one officer in particular, Officer Pollard, with the bomb squad, and mentions that he didn't document some of the work that he says he did to investigate the tip, and that he acknowledged that he didn't do a lot of work that maybe some people would think that you might do if you were investigating such a tip. Do you have plans to discipline him, or do you think that was appropriate?
Well, definitely we'll review it internally as a department to see what we need to do moving forward. We put procedures in place to make sure it's documented moving forward. But when you look back, a lot of investigators may go knock on a door and not get a response and not document it. And it come back this time that, had he documented, then, we would have known that he had made all these steps. Again, it couldn't have been prevented, but it would have been helpful to have this documentation. And so, we'll see internally what we need to do for that.
Were you surprised to see that there wasn't documentation, or do you think that that's something that investigators across the department are doing, taking steps without?
I wouldn't say investigators across the department. I just would say that in this particular case, he went to a door, he knocked, he didn't get a response, and he didn't document that I knocked on a door and I didn't get a response, or I knocked on a neighbor's door and I didn't get a response. Those should have been put in a file.
Are there penalties or, I don't know, anything in place if the officers don't follow these new recommendations and these new guidelines?
Absolutely, it will be. So it'll be adherence to policy, and we want to make sure they follow all protocols, and and we'll discipline accordingly when we need to. So.
Chief, can you talk about why there had been a breakdown in communication between MMPD and the Joint Terrorism Task Force in recent years, and kind of when that happened and how it's going to change now?
Well, in recent years, the Joint Terrorism Task Force officer was assigned part-time. They worked in specialized investigations, and with some of those cases, complex, whether it's with Homeland Security, the FBI, et cetera. And so I wanted to make sure this was full-time. And so that officer is now full-time, and there's no gaps to where they have regular communication with the FBI and et cetera. I'm not sure why they went to a part-time format, but when I heard they did, I immediately changed it back. So.
And can you talk about how many tips you're looking into now regarding bomb threats, if it's gone up or down at all?
Well, we get bomb threats regularly, and we're reviewing all of those, and we have the monthly summit. That summit will be, all those cases will be discussed with all the powers to be, the federal agents, the state agents, and also with our MMPD employees. So with that being said, we have all levels being from federal to local that's exploring all of these cases, so that'll be very helpful. The same thing we looked at, even when we were working in domestic violence and other cases, we found we were more efficient when we all came together. The same approach is being done here, but except on a much broader level. So.
After the bombing, Chief, you said that you believe the officers in August 2019 had done everything they could. Now, this report seems to say the opposite.
So based on that particular meeting, I had met with Detective Pollard, I had met with, had conversations with the FBI, had conversations with some of the specialized investigation detectives, and based on the information they had given me, it wasn't anything else, in my opinion, at that time we could have done. But that's exactly why I ordered this after-action review, and that's exactly why I wanted the people involved, the people that would not say, hey, we totally agree with you. We have the Community Oversight Board, a former U.S. attorney, and we have others that could sit on this panel and say, hey, this is what could have been done better, or flat out, this was wrong. I would have accepted all of that. And so to go back and look at this is what I really wanted, to try to find any type of gaps and deficiencies to be better moving forward.
Do you think that that's a problem, though, if you met with senior members of your leadership team and you felt like everything was done correctly, and then this review indicates otherwise?
Well, it wasn't senior members, it was detectives, some of the senior executive staff, but based on the information given us, at that time, that was all that I felt could have been done. These new procedures that's been put in place, I think go above and beyond in making us a safer city, in having communications with the federal partners, with the state partners, about any and all cases. That way we have a 4-part closure to make sure it's not any gaps. So the whole thing is just to make sure we're better moving forward. And, at that particular time, that was the information that was given. So.
Do you have any regrets about how you shared the information about the 2019 report in the days after the bombing?
I don't have any regrets. When I got the information that particular morning, I had meetings with the staff, with the officers, and with others. And then immediately that afternoon, I'm not sure what time, we had a press conference. I didn't delay that any. I could have waited a day or two and gathered more information, but I wanted to be transparent as quickly as possible with the information that we had. So.
Can you speak a little bit more broadly about what your reaction was to the report? There's some bruising findings there. What did you think when you first read it?
I expected some of it, as I, sat down for a few days and I looked at it in hindsight. Documentation was one. How do we say that we did all these things, these procedures, et cetera. And so wasn't just a little bit disappointed that we didn't have these procedures in place beforehand. But again, that's why we have the after-action report. We have some good men and women in this police department, and the following up and making sure they documented it would have been better. But the main thing is we're going to be better moving forward. So.
Anybody else? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.